The present case will take us to Birmingham, a city in the metropolitan province of the West Midlands in Britain with a populace of more than 1 million individuals. It is the second biggest city in the unified realm. It's otherwise called the City of 1000 Exchanges because of its status as the world's most memorable assembling town. Birmingham is well known for its assembling courses as well as notable for its legacy in the realm of food and cooking. Unbelievable exciting music and clamoring nightlife. Nova was brought into the world in 1957 in Jamaica. She was not a lone kid but rather had a more youthful sister by the name of Valerie. Nova grew up into a light-hearted and blissful kid whom everybody in the area couldn't resist the opportunity to cherish. Nova was a wonderful individual, generally cheerful and grinning, said Nova's dearest companions. Lorna Edmund. When Nova was 10 years of age, her mom Lorna Welsh chose to move to the unified realm looking for greener fields. It was a seriously difficult choice as it implied she needed to abandon individuals and spot they had become so acquainted with. However, the craving to do everything she possibly can in life assisted her with staying. Made plans to leave the country. Not long in the wake of pursuing the choice, Lorna and her girls headed out to the UK and started their lives. A new life in the unified realm was totally different from what they were utilized to, yet as time went on the family changed and settled a ways into their new climate. When Nova was around the age of 16 she met and experienced passionate feelings for Osmond Ringer, a young man who was likewise as old as her. In the blink of an eye the two of them began a close connection. Maybe Nova was essentially visually impaired, did by affection, or maybe she just needed her freedom. However, a couple of months down the line she spread the word about her expectation to venture out from home. She let her mom know that she and Osmond had chosen to start living respectively. It isn't clear in the event that Lorna supported this choice or not, yet in any case Nova ultimately moved and went to reside with Osmond. 2 years after the fact, Nova and Osmond invites their most memorable kid. It was a kid and they named him Jonathan. 4 years after the fact they had another child and he was given the name Lee. Nova was a dedicated mother to her young children and cherished them sincerely to accommodate themselves as well as their kids. The couple took up various positions. Nova filled in as a part-time cleaner while Osmond was a manufacturer. Life appeared to be going at a very decent speed, yet unfortunately things wouldn't remain a similar. Sooner or later the adoration among Nova and Osmond started to disintegrate. The flash that had been there toward the start of their relationship steadily blurred. The result of this was that the couple started to squabble all the more. Much of the time it became normal so that neighbors might hear the couple's boisterous battles in their loft situated in the Ladywood region. Their conflicts likewise some of the time swelled into brutality, with Osmond hitting her and leaving her with wounds. As time passes, Nova turned out to be progressively troubled in her relationship and she trusted in her more youthful sister Valerie as well as a few dear companions about the things she was going through. In the end she made up her brains to allow love and opportunity with another person. She let Osmond know that she was not generally keen on the relationship. However, regardless of her completion things, Osmond was not prepared to allow her to go. In May 1981 Nova met a man by the name of Wayne Newby and the two of them got into a relationship. As their sentiment advanced, Wayne would in some cases visit her at her home. This didn't agree with Osmond and it gave him more motivations to battle with Nova. In June 1981 Nova's stepsister Sonia visited her for a couple of days. During this period Sonia saw one of their battles and how terrible it could get. On that specific day Sonia had been in the parlor when she heard a shout from the heading of the kitchen. It was unmistakably Nova's voice and she immediately hurried to the kitchen to figure out what was off base. What she saw frightened her. Nova was down on the floor while Osmond stood irately over her with a dishcloth folded over his hands. At the times that followed, Sonia clarified that she would call the police, yet Osmond attempted to prevent her from making this move. When cops later showed up at the house they asked what had occurred and Nova was the person who did the making sense of. She let them know that she and Osmond had been contending and she believed him should take off from the house. She never explained to police that the genuine justification for why they had contended was on the grounds that she had gone out the earlier evening and Osmond had not been satisfied about this. He had faced her when she returned from her excursion and things had raised from that point, with him snatching her by the neck. Furthermore, attempting to choke her. After Nova was finished talking, officials moved to where Osmond was and addressed him. He didn't contend, however, gathered his packs and went out. It was a snapshot of alleviation for Nova, and she realized that things would turn out to be less warmed from that second. She was right. With Osmond never again around, she had the opportunity to invest more energy with her sweetheart Wayne. There could have been presently not the concern of meeting an irate Osmond in the wake of returning from a late evening outing. She likewise had more motivations to snicker and was for the most part more joyful. Yet, as it turned out, Nova's recently discovered happiness would be brief. On July 24, 1981, Nova took her 2 children, Jonathan and Lee, to remain with their dad Osmond. She had before made arrangements to go out with Wayne and a portion of her companions, and in view of this she would have rather not abandoned her 2 children in the house. Separated from this, she additionally wanted to take them over. Will be an extraordinary way for them to security with their dad in the wake of dropping the young men over at Osmond's place she made for the club, or she and Wayne had consented to meet that night, was yet again sensational as she made merry however much she might want, and with Wayne close by she felt like a youngster in affection. When she chose to leave the club it had previously gotten dull. She bade Wayne and their different companions farewell and left for her condo. That would be the last time any of them would see her alive. The next morning, which was July 25, 1981, Nova's neighbors Carmen and Wendell Turner, who lived in the level underneath hers, were awoken by a commotion. It was coming from Nova's loft above, and it was the recognizable sound of contention that they had heard oftentimes previously. This time around they could hear Nova crying. On the night of that very day another neighbor saw Nova and would later let the police know that she showed up noticeably irritated about something. Right around 7 hours after the fact, at around 12:30 a.m., Carmen and Wendell heard a noisy bang from above. While examining what or who might have made such a commotion around midnight, a subsequent bang followed. That specific one seemed like someone kicked an entryway. Carmen and Wendell tuned in for more sound, yet it never came. With practically no further unsettling influences, they nodded off and didn't respect the clamor they had quite recently heard until such a ton later. July 27, 1981 was a Monday, and the occupants of Birmingham approached their day-to-day exercises anyway. Nova didn't turn up for work on that day or the day after that. No one saw her and knew where she was around that time. Nova's mom Lorna and sister Valerie had forever moved from the unified realm to Miami in the US, and they had trusted that sometime in the not too distant future Nova would likewise get them together with her 2 kids. After getting to Miami they called Nova yet couldn't contact her. This made them stressed. We were attempting to contact her to affirm that we had shown up securely, however we would never find any solution, said Valerie Welsh, Nova's closest companion. Lorna was perhaps the earliest individual to see that she was missing. Lorna realized that it was not normal for her companion to decline to get the telephone and not appear for a few days. She anyway accepts there was an unmistakable justification for all that was occurring. In the wake of reasoning things through, she made up her brains to visit Nova to see what was off base. After arriving at Nova's loft she found that the entryway was locked, and regardless of how hard she thumped or called out to Nova she got no reaction. She thought that it is all exceptionally odd and pondered on the off chance that her companion had left the country without telling anybody. However, something different grabbed her eye and caused her to understand that not everything was well. Some garments which Nova had washed were holding tight the line. It was not normal for Nova to forget about her garments in the open after they had dried, and this was the sort of thing Lorna was very much aware of. If all else fails, and to affirm her feelings of trepidation she contacted Osman to inquire as to whether he had seen Nova yet. He told her that he had not and that their 2 kids were with him. With this Lorna went to the police headquarters and revealed that her companion was feeling the loss of. This was on August 9, 1981, 14 days after Nova vanished without a follow. Cops started looking for her quickly. They connected with her dear companions, however not a solitary one of them had seen her. Osmond was likewise reached and asked when he last saw her and for what good reason why he had not detailed her missing before. Accordingly, Osmond let them know that he thought she had gone off with her new beau or to America with her family. On August 12, 1981, 3 days after Lorna announced Nova missing, She got a letter in her post box. At first she thought it was from a relative anyway. Subsequent to breaking the seal and perusing the substance, she understood that she was off base. As per the letter, the beau of whoever had composed it had seen Nova battling with a man she had gone out with around the hour of her vanishing. The letter guarantees that the man had snatched and hit Nova. Lorna was confounded as she had no clue about who had composed the letter, since the individual had decided to stay mysterious, yet going by what she had perused she could unravel that the individual was a female. Lorna didn't sit around idly in showing the police the letter. In the wake of going through the letter's office, concentrate on Wayne, since he was the man Nova had been going out with before she had vanished anyway. When Wayne was addressed, he keeps up with that he had no clue about where Nova was or had gone to. On August 18, 1981, the police were called upon by Nova's neighbor to research a foul scent that was all around the house. No one realized what precisely was smelling, however it was genuinely horrendous and made everybody awkward. When cops showed up at the house, they immediately understood that the smell was a lot more grounded in a specific region, and this was higher up at Nova's level. They advanced there, and subsequent to finding that the entryway was locked, they immediately separated it. The odor developed more extreme as they went into the house, and the officials held their hands to their noses and scowled in disdain as they started their quest for the source. The house was in confusion and tidied. Chose the furniture. Spider webs were likewise noticeable on the roof, and this showed that nobody had been residing in the house for quite a while. There were steps in the condo, and under them was a cabinet. Officials were drawn to this piece of the house since they saw that the smell was particularly more grounded there. Unusually, the lock on the entryway of the pantry looked broken, and a piece of biting gum had been utilized to hold it set up. When officials at last opened it, they saw the rotting body of the lady that they had been searching for. She wore a robe and was covered by a cover. Furthermore, a few papers. It was an extremely sickening sight, and the officials could scarcely conceal their shock. Nova had been decaying inside her own home from the beginning. While the world was looking for her, a rescue vehicle was called to the scene, and Nova's body was removed for post-mortem. The gum that was found on the pantry door was gathered as proven by the police and put away. The fresh insight about Nova's demise before long spread around the local like quickly. Her family in Miami were likewise reached and informed about what had happened. They were grief-stricken and sobbed for a really long time. The consequences of the post-mortem that was directed on Nova's body uncovered that she had kicked the bucket because of strain on the neck. Criminal investigators quickly sent off an examination to decide how Nova had met her end. The individual at the highest point of the suspect rundown was Osmond. Analysts felt that there was an off-putting thing about him, thus he was captured. In the 4 days that he was held in care, he was made to go through a progression of cross-examinations, yet in spite of this investigators didn't get anything unmistakable from him. Eventually he was likewise shown the puzzling letter that Lorna, Nova's companion, had gotten, and was inquired as to whether he had significant insight into it. He educated them that he realized nothing concerning the letter, since there could have been not a glaringly obvious explanation to keep holding him at the station. He was permitted to return home. After this, criminal investigators proceeded with the examination and even went to the extent that asking people in general for data in regards to Nova's demise, yet they got nothing and the case went cold. Nova was before long let go and life continued. However, the torment her passing carried remained on with her family, and for quite a while they pondered who had killed her. Years went by and the universe of criminological science turned out to be more refined, complex DNA procedures that appears to be an unrealistic fantasy at the hour of Nova's demise became conceivable because of advances in innovation. In 2014, analysts chose to look again at the case. This time they zeroed in on the biting gum that had been utilized to seal the cabinet in which Nova's body was found. The gum had been saved throughout the long term, and investigators realized it would contain the DNA of whoever had utilized it to hold the pantry's door set up. They accepted that whoever it ended up being was possible Nova's killer. A test was before long sudden spike in demand for the gum, and DNA was recuperated. Upon additional examination, analysts found that it was a match to, in all honesty, Osmond. The gum wasn't the main detail that was tried for DNA. The mark of the letter Luna got back in 1981 was likewise shipped off the lab for testing, and Osmond's DNA was likewise found on it. This implied just something single. He had composed the letter to redirect consideration from himself with the strong proof. Criminal investigators realized that they had at long last cornered Osmond. He was before long captured and accused of the capture of his Nova. During resulting cross-examinations after the capture, Osmond kept up with his honesty and even gave reasons concerning why his DNA was on the gum and letter seal for the gum. He said that he had been maintaining a clothing business previously, and he at times utilized the cabinet where Nova's body was found at some point well before Nova kicked the bucket. The pantry lock had been broken and he had utilized the gum to hold it set up for the letter. He guarantees that he had come into contact with it back in 1981 when he was being examined for the homicide. What I truly do recollect is by and large left in a room with a letter and envelope on the table for a few minutes. I thought at the time maybe I'm being noticed and they just returned after I took the letter up and viewed it. I read it and overlooked it. Osmond had made sense of as respects to how his DNA had gotten on the letter. Since Osmond continued to demand that he had no hand in Nova's demise, the case in the end attended preliminary. Following a month and a half of preliminary, he was gotten free from murder. Since there was no proof to show that the killing had been planned anyway, he was indicted for homicide and was condemned to 12 years in jail. This condemning was on Spring 22, 2017. Nova's family were happy with the result of the preliminary at last. Following 36 monotonous years, Nova can find happiness in the hereafter. The family can now have conclusion knowing the individual who ended Nova's life has been dealt with. Nova's mom Lorna said. Nova's sister Valerie additionally said the family had excused Osman for what he did. We pardon him, however he actually needs to pay for what he's done. He never confessed to that, said Valerie. Lorna, Nova's closest companion, was likewise feeling better that her executioner had been dealt with. I frequently think about the bygone eras and the things we used to do. I actually miss Nova and just expectation that her family can now discover a sense of reconciliation. Nova can find happiness in the hereafter, realizing that equity has been done. I'll at absolutely no point ever fail to remember her till we meet in the future. Nova, love your companion Lorna. Nova's case is to be sure a miserable one, as she never got to see her kids develop into grown ups, yet there is the help that her executioner has been at last dealt with in spite of what amount of time it required. Yet for what reason do you think Osman wouldn't take ownership of the wrongdoing even after all the proof highlighted him as the executioner?